and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm so excited to have you all here with me today. We have a great presentation to get through, tons of data to review, and more. So I can't wait to dive in. I just want to give folks another minute or two to join here. So while we wait, I want to make sure that everyone, all of our attendees on this webinar are able to use the question box feature in the GoToWebinar app. That will essentially be like your chat feature for today. So while you can't chat directly to me or to other participants, the question box feature will act like your chat today. Anything you put into that question box, I'll be able to see throughout this presentation, and I'll try to respond as best I can, and we'll use that question box for the Q&A session at the end. So go ahead and type into that question box. Say hello to me. Let me know where you're calling in from today. I'll call out some of the responses, but I love to just get people talking in there. So say hey, say where you're calling in from. One of the best things about these webinars is they connect folks from all different corners of the world here at this very same time for the very same goal of bettering our marketing. So go ahead and type that in. Already getting a ton of responses, a ton of hey, hellos in there. We got Max Morgan. Hello, Max. Allison from Tennessee. Hello. Deborah from Cleveland. Hey there. Alicia from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Welcome. I'm based in Colorado, and I just moved here from Massachusetts, so still getting used to that. We have some folks from Canada on. Welcome. Tammy from Naples, Florida. I used to live in Florida. Jen from St. Louis. I just went to St. Louis for the first time last year, and I loved it. It's a lot like Boston, so that was great. Colin from Tampa Bay. Cassie from Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome. Awesome. I wish I could call out every single one of you. There's a ton of people still typing in. Go ahead, put that in there. It really is cool if you notice that there weren't a lot of locations that I called out more than once. So a lot more folks on here from all different areas and all different corners, but we're all here for the same reason and the same goal, which is to better our search advertising. So really excited to dive in. With that, I'm going to go ahead into a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Just know that this will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about taking notes or anything like that. You'll get the recording along with a copy of the slides in your inbox later today. And you can also find any of our past webinars if you want to catch up on this one or any ones that you might have missed. We do them twice per month. Those webinars will be found on the Local IQ and WordStream YouTube channels. So just go over to YouTube, type in WordStream, type in Local IQ, click on the channel, and you'll find all of our webinar recordings, including this one from today, over on there as well. So multiple ways for you to get access to this recording, and we will record the whole thing. Especially like to reiterate that because for this particular webinar, it is a bit data heavy, so you might want to take a little bit more time with some of the slides, and that's totally okay. We want to make that easy for you. So you'll get that in your inbox later today, but you'll also be able to find it on your own on YouTube as well. And again, the reason why I had you all practicing how to use that question box is I want you to feel comfortable tossing your questions in there. If you've attended any of our past webinars, we know we always leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, and we've had some really in-depth sessions lately. It's kind of a unique experience where you get to have your questions answered by me directly in what feels like a one-on-one setting. So be sure to stick around for that and save some questions for the end for that. Of course, I'll be looking at that question box throughout this presentation as I'm speaking, but if I can't answer them at the moment as I'm presenting, I'll try and get to them at the end. Now, for everyone on this call, today's webinar, I want to just get us on the same page as to who Local IQ is. So welcome everyone, and if you are already familiar with Local IQ or already working with Local IQ, that's great. If you're familiar working with our legacy brands, WordStream or Reach Local, welcome. And you might be totally new too, and that's great. So welcome everyone. So for everyone on this call, I just want to familiarize everyone with Local IQ. It is a fully integrated growth marketing platform that helps businesses thrive and prosper with digital marketing. And that's through our data-backed platform that's informed by vertical specific data from over 5 million campaigns. And we also personalize our approach when working with businesses in their marketing with local marketing experts who know the industry of the business that we're working with. So we have many different experts that specialize in many different verticals to give you a more personalized approach to your digital marketing. And we also give you tools at your fingertips to put time back into your day, so that you don't have to work on any of the menial tasks of marketing. So our lead generation and lead management help, with the help of AI, allows for faster follow-up and conversion action, and conversion nurturement, through our AI solutions. So really excited to kind of introduce everybody to Look Like You. It's pretty cool. Our platform is pretty amazing. So one thing that we're really proud of here at Look Like You is we are a partner with all the major advertising platforms, and that's not granted to just anyone out there, or any platform out there. We have to hit a rigorous set of requirements to maintain these partnerships. And to do that, we have to show proven campaign performance for our customers. And as you can see in these numbers here, we've definitely succeeded in that. We've delivered over 270 million leads for the businesses that we work with in digital marketing. We've helped businesses generate nearly $16 billion in revenue, and we've helped business owners and marketers save over 142 million hours of work. Now, a little bit about me, your webinar host and facilitator for today, the person that's been talking to you for the last 10 minutes. It's wonderful to meet you all. My name is Susie. I'm a senior content marketing specialist over at Look Like You, where I write for the Look Like You and WordStream blogs, and I cover everything under the marketing sun, in terms of educational content. So whether I'm writing or creating, presentations or guides and things like that, helpful resources for you all to learn more about, like, PPC or search advertising, SEO, search engine optimization, display ads, targeted email marketing, and more. And how I got into this role was I formerly was a digital marketing consultant over at WordStream, where I was working with businesses and folks like many of the people on this call through the day-to-day best practices on major platforms like Facebook ads, Google ads, or now we call it Meta ads, and more. And so I took that real life experience of, working in accounts and coaching people through digital marketing to the educational content that I write and present on today. And a little fun fact about me is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, but I just recently moved to Denver, Colorado. So I'm based out here. I've been exploring the mountains a ton. Snowboarding this season has been great, and been hiking a lot as well. So it's been really great. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, or X as we call it now. I do share out any like major reports, advertising updates, things like that on my LinkedIn. So feel free to check me out, but it's great to meet you all. Now, a common question we get asked on these webinars is, where can you find out more about Local IQ solutions? Where can you find out more about the topics we cover in this webinar? Now, I will be honest, this hour is going to fly by. So if you ever need more time with any of the topics we cover in these webinars, have more questions, things like that, definitely check out the Local IQ and WordStream blogs. We cover everything that we cover in these webinars in depth on our websites and on our blogs. Specifically for this report that I'll be covering today, it is published on the WordStream and Local IQ blogs. So be sure to check it out. Also, if you want to attend more webinars like this in the future, be sure to follow and check out Look Like You and WordStream on social media. You can find both brands on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube. And just another shout out here for those YouTube channels. That's where you're going to be able to find any of our webinar recordings as well. So another reminder that today's webinar and presentation will be recorded, and you can find the recordings on the YouTube channels for each brand. And also, again, you will get the materials along with a copy of the slides in your inbox later today. So let's quickly go over what we're going to cover today. We'll go through the 2026 search advertising landscape. So just going to cover the basic data set from our latest search advertising benchmarks report that we're really proud of. And then we're also going to cover what, businesses in winning industries are doing that is helping them succeed in Google ads and search advertising, Microsoft ads as well. And then we'll also talk through a few tips to improve your own search performance in this coming year. And we'll also do that live Q&A that I teed up. So starting with the 2026 search advertising landscape, this is where I want to take a quick pause and just remind everyone that I'm going to cover a ton of data that was informed by campaigns from the last year. And it's going to seem really data heavy. It might feel like a lot of numbers on the screen. So I'm going to try and these slides, but if you, again, if you have more questions or, needed more time with any of the charts that I'm going to preview here on these slides, again, don't worry, you'll be able to access that later on, and you'll be able to check out the report on the blogs. That's where those charts live. So again, I'll try and, take my time so everybody has a chance to look at the data that they want to see, but I just wanted to quickly tee that up. Now, we did, go ahead and pull data from tons and tons, thousands of different campaigns from over 20 different industries over the last year. And we analyzed all that data to pull industry averages in Google Ads and Microsoft Ads, cost per click, click-through rate, conversion rate, and cost per lead. So we took that data and we pulled these overall averages for 2026. And then we also have industry-based averages that I'll cover as well. So the overall averages for search advertising is generally just a reminder as well that not every account is going to see these exact numbers, right? So if you're looking at this and you're thinking already, I'm way off, that's okay. That's totally normal. But, some folks are starting out in Google Ads and they have no idea what a good account looks like, what good performance looks like. If you don't have historical data, or if you're in a niche industry or anything like that, and you're not really sure, here's what we've found. Generally, from our campaign data, from our own local IQ powered campaigns, we found that most search advertising accounts are seeing an average click-through rate of 6.64%, an average cost per click of $5.42 in US dollars, a conversion rate of 8.18%, and then the average cost per lead at $66.69. Now I'm going to dive a little bit more into these averages and we'll break them out by industry. You'll see when we go to the industry breakdown, it's actually quite different depending on the industry from these overall averages, but just wanted to cover that. So one interesting main takeaway that I really want to highlight from this year's research, mind you, we have been publishing this report for 10 years now, which is really exciting. So I've been digging into this data and writing and publishing these articles that have been featured in many industry publications for 5 years. So for the latter half of the lifetime of this report, I personally have been writing it. And one of the coolest things to see in this year's report for 2026 is that for the first time in 5 years, cost per lead has actually gone down. Now, some of the businesses on here, depending on your sales funnel and everything like that, you might know cost per lead as more like cost per acquisition or cost per conversion, but it basically is how much it's going to cost you to get a conversion into your Google Ads or Microsoft Ads account. And that could be a lead, it could be whatever you're counting as a conversion. So for our cost per lead metric for the last 5 years, it has been slightly increasing each year. But for the first time in 5 years, its cost per lead is actually down year over year. So that indicates a more positive advertising experience and a more positive advertising landscape from over the last year. And it's evolved into maybe possibly a little bit cheaper or more lucrative channel for most advertisers. So again, it decreased by almost 5% year over year. And I can't wait to see next year if it decreases again. Meanwhile, cost per click did slightly increase year over year. And as you see, it has been increasing for a few years steadily now. But I would say not as dramatically as it has the last few years. If you see in 2024, the year over year increase was nearly 11%. In the 2025 year over year increase was about 13%, but this year it only increased about 3%. And if you're looking at the differences here, like $5.26 versus $5.42, it's like a 20-cent difference, not even. So with that being said, while you might see, okay, cost per click has slightly increased, it's much more mellow. So this is indicating a lot more of a stable search environment than we've seen historically. We've tend to see huge ebbs and flows when publishing this report over the last 10 years. And as you all know, I'm sure there's a few things that can ring a bell as to why the search ads landscape has been so volatile, from things like, I don't know, COVID-19, which I hate to bring up and reminisce on, but I remember when I was publishing the reports through those years that those numbers were definitely crazy. Also, there's just been a lot of economic shifts over the last couple of years as well. Things like that, much more competition as well, because now at this point, search advertising is not like a nice to have advertising channel, it's a need to have channel. So there's a lot more businesses in Google ads and on Microsoft ads than there were back in 2016 when we started this report. Almost every business that wants to be online is running search ads, which is the right thing to do. It's a good call, but that's just going to naturally increase competition as well, because there's more businesses out there bidding on the terms that you also want to bid on. So we'll talk a little more about that, but just a look at how cost per click has evolved over the last few years. And then to look at the overall changes again from 2025 to 2026 for all four metrics. Go ahead and check this out. The click-through rate has just slightly decreased. So I would call this basically flat year over year. We already covered cost per click and cost per lead. And then conversion rate has also increased pretty significantly. So conversion rate has increased by about 9%. And that's for the majority of the industries we looked at. I don't know the exact number out of the 23 that we looked at, but like it was, I want to say over 60% or even more of the industries we looked at saw an increase in conversion rate year over year. So that's really encouraging, right? If you're seeing overall a decrease in cost per lead and an increase in conversion rate, you're going to then again see, better results coming from your search advertising. So you're getting more conversions at a lower cost, and that's what every advertiser dreams of, right? So hopefully we're all heading in that direction. We'll talk more about how to do that. So let's go through each of the four metrics by industry. So this is where I'm going to, again, try and take my time with these slides so that everyone can just scan quickly through this chart and find the industry that matters most to them. And if you're not feeling like you align with these 23 industry buckets here, just try to find the one that's closest or most closely aligned to your niche industry. And that will help you just at least get a guideline. So again, every single account is different, and I guarantee all of the attendees on this webinar are seeing totally different results from even probably what's on here. And if you're close to this, that's great, but if you're totally off, that's fine too, because every account is different and unique. But these are more to just give a guideline, a guiding light, see how you compare to the competition or businesses like yours that are bidding on terms like yours in the search ads landscape environment. So again, the average click-through rate across all industries is 6.64% in 2026. But the industry that saw the highest click-through rate was arts and entertainment at 12.75%. And then there are some more competitive industries that had lower click-through rates. For example, automotive repair services and parts had a click-through rate of 5.56%. Dental and dentist services at 5.66% as well. And then health and fitness saw the lowest click-through rate at 5.81%. So those three were the lowest. But if you are in those three industries I just called out, don't get discouraged. And I'm going to reiterate that for every metric, and not all of the lowest and highest industries are the same across each metric. Like you're going to see it's going to change. But if you're in those industries that have a lower click-through rate, don't fret. I'm going to cover more of like what the metrics mean, how you can improve them, and things like that. But remember, these are just four metrics out of tons you can measure on Google Ads, and they just paint kind of a small broad stroke of what the overall big picture will look like for your unique business and account. So if you're in those industries that have a lower click-through rate, that doesn't mean, hey, give up on search advertising, like it's not viable for me because I'm not going to have as many clicks as a arts and entertainment business. Like you need to just focus on being competitive within your own market and industry and still generate those clicks. And even if you have a little bit of a lower click-through rate, you might find that, the leads coming in are of more value to your business, or, those clicks are, really meaningful, or they help supplement other channels that you're also marketing and advertising on. So with that, I'm going to move on to cost per click here. So again, it would be easy if all clicks cost the same, but of course they don't. So it did vary between industries. Now, the overall cost per click, as I mentioned, is $5.42, but some industries saw a little bit of a higher average cost per click. So for example, attorneys and legal services has historically had the highest cost per click each year. And this year its average cost per click is at $9.87. Also, home improvement is an extremely competitive industry, and I tend to see it on the high end. Even when I'm working in accounts, which I still do occasionally, and I have seen accounts over the years that are home services businesses, like those are the accounts that stand out to me when I'm looking in directly in Google Ads for businesses. That tend to have high CPCs, right? So home and home improvement average cost per click was $8.33. And then dentists and dental services saw an average cost per click of $8. Now, travel, restaurants, and arts and entertainment were the three that had the lowest cost per click. And I would also say that's pretty consistent from throughout the years. Those industries tend to have a lower cost per click. And again, it's nothing to take like personal overall averages, right? So if your industry is higher or lower, like that's no kind of like reflection on your own business performance in Google Ads and Microsoft Ads. It's more just like assessing the nature of the market. So what are the terms that are maybe being searched for or of higher value? What are the terms that are being searched a lot, but maybe aren't as of high value because they're searched all the time, people clicking all the time? What industries have a lower or longer or shorter sales cycle, things like that all play into, what your cost, what Google Ads and Microsoft Ads are charging for clicks. But then we know that cost per click is also going to be impacted by your own account performance, right? Your quality score, which is made out of your landing page experience, your expected click-through rate, and your ad relevance, right? So are you serving the best quality ad for the user? Well, then if you are, Google won't charge you as much per click because that showing that ad is of higher value to them. So those are just examples of how like cost per click can change through the Google Ads auction. I can get into more of that later, but did just want to touch on a few of the cost per click averages here. Moving on to conversion rate. This is obviously an important metric because it measures how frequently those clicks that you're getting are turning into a conversion. So while, again, clicks are of very high value, most businesses are focusing on conversions and conversion value, things like that. So if you're feeling like, your clicks matter as long as they're bringing in conversions, like you're not alone in that. Well, I don't want to knock with this sentence here, like clicks only matter if they convert. Clicks matter regardless because they can turn into all sorts of different meaningful actions. And if anything, they're still playing into that brand awareness and that buyer journey. But again, it's fine to prioritize conversion rate. That's why it's important. That's why it's there. That's why we're advertising. It's because we want to get more customers. So 87% of industries, there's a percentage I was trying to think of off the top of my head earlier. 87% of industries have seen improvements in their conversion rates year over year. I covered that a little bit on the year over year slide here. Now, some of the industries that had the highest conversion rates were animals and pets, automotive repair, and education. Now, for animals and pets, that had the highest conversion rate at 16.22%, automotive repair, services, and parts at 15.51%, and then education, of course, at 13.14%. Finance and insurance, furniture, and career and employment faced the biggest conversion challenges. So those were the three industries that saw the lowest conversion rates. Career and employment at 3.05%, finance and insurance at 2.64%, and furniture at 2.99%. Now, again, if you're in those industries that's a little lower, don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean that, you might not be getting more conversions down the line, and the ads are playing into that whole buyer journey, as I mentioned. Also, there's other outside factors I covered in the more in depth in the report for career and employment specifically that unemployment rates were just slightly down in 2025, not fully down as we've seen in prior years, but there wasn't an increase. So with that being said, or I think it was like basically flat. I have the whole chart referenced in the report, but I'm thinking that probably plays into why career employment is generally seeing like not a super high conversion rate compared to some of these other higher conversion rate categories. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not viable for those types of businesses. If anything, I actually highlighted in the report how if you are in those industries that tend to see lower conversion rates, that's all the more reason to be advertising, because think of all the competitors out there in your market that are throwing in the towel because they feel like that conversion rates aren't viable for them. They're not getting conversions. They're not getting clicks, not compared to what they were wanting. And with that, comes opening opportunities for other competition to shine through. So you might end up seeing lower CPCs, and you might end up being able to rank a lot more and get your ads seen more. And there's a lot of competitors that aren't even showing on those landscapes. So really important to still continue your marketing and advertising, no matter the industry and no matter the channel. Moving on to the money metric, as I have kind of called it over the years. I don't know. I feel like I kind of came up with that when I started writing this report, and I love calling it that. The money metric, because it's kind of like, this is your bang for your buck, right? Cost per lead. Cost per lead is so important for so many businesses. And I will say, like, it is so easy to get bogged down by one metric. And I've seen it working with businesses, working with marketers, working in accounts over the years so many times where, a business owner, a marketer, a certain business, a certain account is, telling me like they've had these campaigns forever and they've always been working and now they're not working. Or, they feel like they're just so bogged down by their cost per lead, like they're hitting or exceeding the industry average for all their other metrics, but their cost per lead is high. And that's when I have to kind of, remind folks to pivot. And, there might be different campaigns that'll work better for them. So it's okay to switch strategies, just don't give up. And also to kind of focus in what matters most to their bottom line, right? So it's easy to get bogged down by cost per lead because I feel like in the search ads landscapes, that's what's emphasized. But think about your own business goals and needs, right? So if it's a small business that's looking to get more awareness and looking to get more potential customers through the door, if you're getting a ton of impressions or a ton of your click-through rate's decent, or, even if you're hitting your conversion metrics, right? You're hitting your conversion goals, but your average cost per lead is a little high. Well, is it worth it because you want those conversions, or do you want to scale back and lower your cost per lead, but, also maybe be seeing less conversions? So it really does matter. Like, you might see a keyword or two in your account that like has a higher cost per click, which in turn can lead to a higher cost per lead. But like, if that's the bread and butter of your account and that's what's getting conversions, and, or again, if you're looking for brand awareness and you're hitting those impression numbers, like, those other metrics, as even though it feels really important, and it's easy to think that, and I understand that, right? Like, we're putting money behind these campaigns, and limited resources behind these campaigns. We want to get the best bang for our buck. So that's why we track and measure cost per lead. But I just wanted to kind of remind folks that like it's not the end all be all metric. But with that said, if you're prioritizing cost per lead, totally normal. And cost per lead, was a little bit lower for the arts and entertainment, automotive repair services and parts, and restaurants industry categories. Now, attorneys and legal services, furniture, and real estate saw the highest cost per lead. Real estate cost per lead at $102.51. Attorneys and legal services at $131.63. And furniture at $106.70. Versus over on arts and entertainment on the lower end at $26.84. Automotive repair services and parts was at $29.96, and then restaurants down at $30.57. So huge differences there between industries. So that's why we have this industry breakdown, because all of those numbers too are also very different from the overall average. So just be considering what your own business's unique needs are. But I did just want to touch on some of the highs and lows there. Now let's talk about what the businesses in winning industries are doing differently. And it doesn't mean that, there's certain strategies that are yes or no. There's multiple different ways to get to positive Google Ads, Microsoft Ads results. But with that being said, let's talk about some of the trends that we're seeing in the industries that tend to have, good performance, or, quote unquote, good performance compared to their own industry. But, compared to the overall averages, what the differences are there. Now, these are the overall metrics, all four metrics together for all industries. Again, a ton of data on this slide. So just another reminder that this will be recorded. You'll get a copy of the slides in your inbox later today, along with the recording, and you can find the recording on YouTube and the full report, along with this image where you can enlarge and save it on the WordStream blog. Now, here are some of the industries that saw the biggest changes year over year in cost per lead. So while overall cost per lead did decline for the first time in 5 years, which I'm still really psyched about, some industries were seeing those big improvements, but other industries were, facing a little bit of a higher cost per lead. And that just came down to changing market behavior, honestly. And like I mentioned earlier, like a lot of it is in your control when it comes to Google Ads and Microsoft Ads, but there's also market factors outside of your control too that are going to impact your performance. And that's why working with a marketing partner can be so helpful, honestly, because it can feel easy to feel out of control when you're within your Google Ads or Microsoft Ads account, and like let's say your structure's solid. Like I've said, I've worked with businesses where it's like they're running these campaigns for the last 5-10 years now, and they're like, well, it's always worked, so what's changed? And it's their accounts like as clean as it can possibly get, right? It's as structured as it can get or optimized as it can get. Well, a marketing partner can help you think of those other things that can even squeeze your account a little bit further, can help you pivot, can help you try those new campaign types that you might not have always ran before. And it can also, just help you be more aware of those market trends, industry trends, customer trends that you might not have necessarily thought of, and help you brainstorm other ways to kind of work around those. So again, I have also mentioned how important it is to really consider the metrics that you're measuring. So as I highlighted in this quote, and this Varun is also quoted in the report, great kind of extra perspective here, but he says to not try to over focus on any one metric. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, sure, if your click-through rate and your cost per click are looking good, that's great. But if your goal is conversions or leads, then you need to be focusing on conversion rate and conversion value and cost per lead. But if you're just starting out, like I said, and you're working on brand awareness and impressions, like a good click-through rate is a win. So, don't be bogged down, like I said, by one metric, and have a more full funnel approach to your reporting. And try and consider not only the 4 metrics that we cover in this report, but any other metrics out there that might help clue you into your overall performance. So there's a lot of moving parts that play into gauging your Google Ads and Microsoft Ads performance. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also, another thing that's really important is to be active in your account. Now, not only in this search advertising benchmarks report, but we also did another cool new report just this past, had not published before, where we analyzed, I want to say I was over like 15,000 different Google Ads accounts that performed really well using our WordStream free Google Ads performance grader. And from those, we kind of saw the differences between accounts that were scoring well and accounts that weren't scoring as well. And the accounts that were scoring well had a lot more maintenance involved in their account, right? So they're in those accounts, they're making changes, they're, pausing and unpausing keywords, enabling keywords, they're adding negative keywords. In fact, I found from that report that adding at least just one negative keyword in your account can increase conversion rates by 3x. So it can triple your conversion rates to even just have one negative keyword on your search campaigns, which helps negate that traffic that you don't want and help you focus your ad spend to the traffic that matters most. Now, of course, over with the local IQ advertising platform, we do automatically keyword optimize for our customers. So we're constantly adding negative keywords for our accounts based on different parameters and ramifications. So you don't even have to worry about it. You get negative keywords added to your account as needed automatically, which is pretty awesome and saves a lot of time. But again, the accounts that are going to do well are just in there regularly, and I know everybody can be limited in terms of time and bandwidth to spend on their account, but basically I'm saying, find a routine that works for you to regularly check in. And another reason why a marketing partner can help, because they kind of hold you to, all right, we're going to check in on this account, every month or biweekly or quarterly, whatever works for you and your business and your bandwidth and your time. So just, scheduling that out. And, for this example in the screenshot here, this is an example of an account I've been in and worked in. And basically they've had that campaign running since 2018, which is what, 8 years ago almost now. So it's almost a 10-year-old campaign. And that's the interesting or cool thing that, I didn't even really like touch on too much when I was writing this report, but I've been thinking about a lot is that, and I kind of talked about it earlier with the rise of competition in the search engine advertising landscape, that, there's a lot of businesses that are in the Google Ads, Microsoft Ads game now, probably plenty of people on this call that have been advertising for years now, right? Because back when we were doing these reports, we started the report in 2016. And then we continued the report through to 2020, for example, or beyond. And with that, like Google Ads hadn't really been around all that long at that point. Like it had been around for a long time at that point, but it was still felt kind of new to a lot of new marketers or businesses that were trying to get online. And, there weren't a lot of businesses quite fully, built out on Google Ads or Microsoft Ads yet. Now it's like, yeah, they've been running the same campaign for almost 10 years. But even so, in that example, that campaign has still had, if you can kind of see included in the change history that's like hidden in the dark preview there, they have changes recorded as recently as like last month. So even though you might have some older campaigns in your account that have been running on cruise control like clockwork for a really long time now, but if you just go in and regularly change them, check on them, like it can make all the difference and help them perform better. And that's really important because, of course, like the landscape and user behavior has changed from 2018 to now. Like I would assume if that campaign was untouched since 2018 or 2020, like it would not be doing as good as it would be doing. So make sure that you're regularly reviewing your campaigns. Try A/B testing new messaging, refining your targeting, trying something new, and going with data back decisions over time, which I'll get a little bit to. Now we also do see that accounts that do the best in Google Ads and Microsoft Ads focus on automated campaign features. There's a ton of automation that's been pushed out on the Google Ads and Microsoft Ads platform. So instead of manually bidding, for example, not only are you using automated bidding, but you're opting into one of those automated bidded strategies that are considered smart bidding. Now, over 80% of Google Ads accounts have smart bidding now activated, and smart bidding is just a form of automated bidding that automatically adjusts your bids in real time. And we help our accounts kind of power through with smart bidding. So it's pretty cool. And it helps your bid stay kind of a lot more nimble and adjust to the market, which can be really important because, as I mentioned, things are changing very fast in the search ads landscape. And not only should you be doing smart bidding probably because the odds are with that first stat that your competition is using smart bidding, but also because it can increase conversions. It's been proven that smart bidding can increase an account's conversions by as much as 19%. So that's just one example of an automated feature. There's a ton of other automated features you can use in Google Ads and Microsoft Ads, for example, AI Max for search in Google Ads. There's also ways that you can use automated ad assets and things like that to amplify your ads. So just think about how you can work that in a little bit more. I've also noticed a lot of accounts, especially now, like I've said, there's a lot of advertisers that have been running for a long time on kind of like a manual strategy. And at the end of the day in 2026, like you have to have some type or some level of automation on your campaigns. There's just so many automated features now in Google Ads and Microsoft Ads that didn't even exist like a year ago or 2 years ago. Like there's so many different automation options. Like try and think of where you can pull that into your current campaigns or try a new campaign. Even if you're supplementing, for example, your search ads campaigns with a performance max campaign, which is kind of like a smart campaign. It like generates your assets for you, serves them for you, and so on. So I was alluding to this earlier, but you can see I mentioned that negative keyword stat, which isn't like explicitly called out in this chart, but this chart's actually from that other report that I mentioned, where we analyzed over 15,000 different Google Ads accounts that ran our Google Ads Grader tool. And we found, again, the converting accounts. So there was a decent chunk of accounts out there with zero conversions, no conversions coming into their account for a certain period of time, over 30, 90, I think it was like 90 days or more. So that's like a significant amount. It's not like, okay, they didn't get a conversion this week. Like, and I understand there are some slower flow accounts like that, and that's normal. That's okay if you're one of those accounts that does have maybe a little bit of a slower conversion rate. But generally you want to be pulling in conversions. Now, part of that, and I did acknowledge in the report, and I think about this a lot, and my heart goes out to the account owners out there that might be dealing with this. could be because your conversion tracking is broken or off, right? So if you're not tracking any actions, you're not tracking conversions properly, or your conversion tracking that you think you've set up is not functioning properly, yeah, you're not going to have any conversions coming into your account. But assuming, that setup as it should be, or you deal with that and you're still seeing no conversions, why that might be happening. Well, we looked at that and we found that accounts that convert more tend to have a little bit of a higher spend. Of course, that's going to be a no-brainer. Like if you put more money behind a campaign, like it's going to naturally going to perform well. But that obviously that's not always feasible for every business out there. And we know and understand and acknowledge that. Like these are limited resources. We're all working on a budget or balling on a budget, as I always say, when it comes to anything, and especially with search advertising. And it can be scary to put budget behind a campaign because you want to see that return. But they do generally maybe have a little bit more spend, and that's not necessarily because they're like, oh, I just have this huge budget that I can just dump into Google Ads, but maybe their just account is naturally built out a little bit more over time. So as they've evolved and like built that historical data and expanded their account, they're able to put more budget behind those campaigns in that account. So we've seen that. We've also seen that they tend to also trend with a higher click-through rate. They also trend with a higher quality score. And they also trend with like not a super high rate of impressions, but they do trend high with negative keywords as well. So again, you want to be consistently checking in on your account and optimizing, because what I'm seeing there, like a high quality score, all comes down to account management, to be honest. Like there are some factors in quality score that are a little bit out of our control because Google assigns your quality score, but quality score is one of the factors that play into the Google Ads auction and your max cost per click bid on each individual auction that helps you determine how much Google is going to charge you for a click. So if you work on the things that, impact quality score, that's still a basic Google Ads fundamental that we've been preaching since basically I've started in the game many years ago, and it still holds true. So while, you want to be using new features and automated features and looking at new strategies, it's totally okay if you're focused on quality score. Like that's normal and that's part of the game. You also want to be thinking about how to get more granular with your targeting. So again, with the data that we covered here, if you're feeling like you're not seeing the results you want to see, like let's say you're not seeing the cost per lead you want to see, you're not seeing the conversion rate you want to see, your click-through rate, your clicks, whatever it may be. A lot of it can come down to targeting. So there are a ton of different targeting options and possibilities across Google Ads and Microsoft Ads that I really don't want anyone on this call to be sleeping on. Just be thinking about that. If you can, like, potentially you might switch to like a more automated or broader campaign, but it has a layer of audience targeting on it that you haven't used before. Or again, you could be working with a marketing partner to help you build those audience lists and organize those audience lists and automate those audience lists so that they're cleaner, so that they're hitting the right people. Because let's say, for example, okay, like you're getting a high click-through rate, but they're not converting. That can boil down to an audience issue easily, because for some reason they're inclined to click on your ad, but then once they get to your landing page, they're not wanting to convert. So they're not ready. So aside from like maybe your landing page is confusing or not functioning right, or your conversion tracking is broken or something, or like your ad is different from what they're expecting. But the reality is like, it's probably coming down to the audience not being ready to convert. So how can you find that audience that is ready to convert? Or another example, if you're showing a ton, you're yielding a lot of impressions, but you're not getting any clicks, your click-through rate is kind of low. Well, okay, so you're showing your ad a lot and maybe your ad is enticing, but for some reason it's just not speaking to the right audience, or you're showing for the wrong audience, getting wrong traffic, things like that. Those are just a few examples of why you want to just be on top of the audience targeting that you are deploying. So here's a few more tips on how you can improve your search advertising performance. And it can come down a lot to, just building your overall brand and business and your brand reputation, and, going for a more full funnel approach. So your search advertising is just a small piece of like a broader puzzle of digital marketing for your business. So the first thing is to set the right goals for your search ads. And I use an example here. The reporting capabilities in Google Ads have expanded a ton since we first launched the search advertising benchmarks report in 2016. So there is a ton that you can play around with here. Don't be afraid to build yourself some custom reports, measure and what makes sense to you and your business. Also, making sure that you're running ads on more than just Google. So, for example, our customers have access to run media ads across the USA Today network and other places beyond just the search advertising network. And as you can see in this example, like the customer journey has changed so much. So we help and empower the businesses that we work with to be showing everywhere they possibly can be, right? Beyond just Google ads and Microsoft ads, because it can be really easy to have like tunnel vision with that. But like, think about the average, customer experience. And we all experience even in ourselves firsthand as customers, as consumers ourselves. We might see an ad, then bounce back and come back to it later, or we search for it again, or then we look for them up on social media, or then we're scrolling a different site, we see an ad for them. You get the picture, right? So like there's a lot of different touch points that your audience can have with your business. So it's so important to be thinking about that and be showing everywhere you can. You also want to be making sure that you're choosing the right budget, and that there is no, like, when I say right budget, I don't just mean a higher budget. And I knock all the time in Google ads specifically, like, I don't know if anyone else feels this way or notices this if they're in their own account, but you'll notice you'll get like flags on like a campaign budget column of like limited by budget, and then you go to the suggestion and it's like increase your budget by 60% or 70%. It's like no one is doing, like, that's insane. So we help our own customers find the right budget. We have a budget optimization tool that helps you find a few different options for budget that are within reason of your budget and can work with the right budget. So whether your budget is large or small, and there is no right or wrong answer, if you feel like your budget is small, like, that's okay too, but you have to just be smart of how you're going to use it when spending on Google ads and Microsoft ads. So I gave the example of how you can calculate your Google ads budget. Basically, you're setting like a daily budget for yourself, but it's easy to like picture it more as a monthly budget. So have it boiled down to overall, like, what are you expecting to spend in a month? How are you going to spread that across campaigns, right? So another easy W right there. Let's say you have a limited budget and you have eight or 10 or 20 different campaigns in your account. But if your overall monthly budget for PPC is kind of limited, you don't want to spread your budget thin between all those different campaigns. You might want to focus your smaller budget into just a few core campaigns that are your bread and butter and they really matter the most. Or vice versa. Let's say you have a huge budget. Well, that's great too, but like unless you're using it in a smart way, you could be just leaving money on the table or wasted spend. And we found in that report that I was also mentioning earlier that the majority of Google Ads accounts, like the average account spends like a little over like $3,000 per month on Google Ads in this one study. It's probably a lot more varied, I would say, overall. But the average account also wastes like over over $1,000 in wasted spend on an average account. So that means like wasted spend, right, is when you're paying for clicks, but they're not converting. So that's just money that you've spent on clicks. And naturally, there's going to be some level of wasted spend on all accounts and all campaigns. Like if it were that easy and that perfect, we would all not be here, right? If we could just get a campaign to convert at 100% conversion rate and every single dollar that we put in came out with a conversion, but that's not always the case. So how can you just, use your budget right, calculate your budget right to maximize your cost per lead and in the right way, minimize your cost per lead, maximize your results. Now, again, as I alluded to this earlier, we do have a few budgeting tools available for our customers that help them understand, a few different levels of budgets and like the goals that they could expect for each, right? So I think that's what's important too with budgeting is just knowing like, okay, if I have a limited budget, that's fine. And then I can expect, this many impressions ideally, or this many clicks, and then shoot for that to start. And then you work your way up or whatever it might be. And then again, I did mention the Google Budget Grader tool, or the Google Budget tool, which can be helpful in the Google Ads platform. Don't get me wrong, I check on it sometimes and it does have helpful suggestions, I would say sometimes, but if you feel like those suggestions are off, like, don't get discouraged. Also, you want to be looking at your keywords constantly. in Google Ads or Microsoft Ads. That's not going away anytime soon. So thinking about your keyword intent, like are your keywords targeting people that are ready to convert, as I mentioned earlier? So are they, are the searches that your ads are showing for, are they more people looking for information, or are they people looking to make a purchase? So as I mentioned earlier, we do have real-time keyword optimization for all of our accounts within the Local IQ ads platform. So we're automatically, adding keywords, negating keywords in real time constantly for our accounts to help them manage that keyword list management, because it can get crazy and it can take a long time. So especially the more and more your account is built out, and the better you do, you wish the reward would be less work in your account, but the better you're doing in your account, probably the more time you're spending on it. So that's when you need, a technology to help you like manage those keywords. Also, you want to be using data to inform your Google Ads and Microsoft Ads campaigns. So we also did a study of a ton of different Google top performing Google ads, individual ads from real accounts, and saw which ads were, yielding the highest click-through rates, the highest clicks, conversions, things like that, and what their commonalities were. And we found that, the top, power words, for example, and we pulled, you can check out the whole report on the WordStream blog as well, but like, we pull like, all right, the top performing ads, they all had this in their headline or this in their description. It was this CTA or this power word or whatever it might be. That's one example of using data to just like edit your account, refine your ads, refine your copy. You also can be using first party data to, influence your bidding decisions and your again, like I mentioned, like just your overall like budget decisions, things like that. So for example, I talked about smart bidding earlier. Smart bidding is, of course, as I mentioned, Google's automated bidding solution that allows, advertisers to set bids in real time based on a wide variety of factors, such as recent browsing behavior, device or search query behavior, audience general interest and intent, and so on. So to put it plainly, instead of just telling Google which keywords you want to bid on, you now show Google what your ideal target customer looks like using conversion and first party data. So that's where that data is so important. And then that guides that smart bidding technology to set out on a quest to find as many potential customers that fit in that profile as possible. It gets the most out of, when you're getting the most out of Google Smart Bidding is when you're using rich first party data to lead it. And we help our customers, collect, organize, and, lead that first party data into Google Ads. So that's the way. So Google's AI can auto adjust bids to pinpoint for the customers that you want to see have clicking on your ads. So again, Local IQ's technology automatically collects and sends multiple types of lead data to Google every day. And that's feeding smart bidding with the data needed to get the best results. So for example, we're leading conversion data into Google Ads. So that's AI powered lead analysis. So with our AI solutions, we tell Google what keyword bids turned into clicks and which of those turned into leads, so that our technology can optimize campaigns for those keywords. And we also, like I mentioned, first party audience data. So using CRMs or customer relationship management systems and campaign lead data to tell Google what a business's ideal customer looks like, so that our technology can use that conversion data to automatically place ads in front of high quality audiences. So really cool stuff, super high tech. As I mentioned, talked a lot about like campaign search advertising fundamentals. This is kind of some of the more like automated advanced things that I was talking about that like you really want to be moving towards in 2026. So I know that was a ton of information. Like I said, this is a jam-packed hour. It's going to fly by. If there was anything that I want you all to remember from today, is that search advertising is stabilizing. It's becoming a little more predictable. It's mellowed out a bit. Efficiency is improving, but only for those advertisers that are working on account quality, right? So in their accounts, working on their accounts, and so on. And that the future of search advertising belongs to advertisers who embrace automation without abandoning strategy. So like I just said, I was talking a lot about like campaign fundamentals and the foundations of your Google Ads account. But I also am saying, while you want to focus on that, you need to now balance it with that automation and those technology advances to really leverage first party data, audience targeting, and more to make your campaigns like super high powered. With that being said, I know that was a ton. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll on the screen that's going to take over the whole screen. And this poll will go ahead and take over your screen. So if you have more questions on everything we covered here, and I know it was a ton of information, if you're seeing these results and you're feeling like, um, it wasn't like the results that we covered here weren't what you were seeing currently, or, whatever it might be, we're here to help, and you can speak with an expert to get your own digital marketing assessment, to get someone answering your questions in a real one-on-one setting. So while I'm going to have this Q&A session at the end here, I know there's going to be a ton of questions coming in about specific business types, specific industries. So if you have questions like that, that's why this poll is up on the screen. It's to, help you get your individual questions answered. So I'm going to let that poll hang out over on the screen there. Go ahead, and once you enter that, you can just sit back and relax. We're going to switch to the audio portion of the webinar for the rest of the few minutes that we have here for the Q&A. So we're going to let that poll hang out. It's going to take over your whole screen, and then once you answer, you can just let it hang. There's no more slides. But I do want to get to the Q&A, and I saw there was a ton of questions coming in. And I wanted to just invite anyone that still had questions, go ahead and drop them in now. I'm going to switch to that Q&A portion and just see what I can answer with these last few minutes here. Oh, okay. So Alicia asked a good question. We don't have rich first party data because we don't have retail type data. This is a common thing that I feel like a lot of businesses are dealing with. So we work with all different types of businesses, e-com, retail aside. We work with mostly a lot of lead based businesses as well. So it's easy to say like, okay, like I don't have like the first party data that an e-commerce brand might have, where it's like, yeah, pretty simple. Somebody clicked on the site, they added to the cart, they checked out or whatever. But if you're more of like a lead generation business, that's when first party data matters all much more and can matter even the most, honestly. And there are a lot of different ways to still pull that first party data. And again, my recommendation there would be honestly, truly working with like a marketing partner to help you rally, corral, and organize that first party data, because it is pretty advanced and it's pretty tough, but it's possible to pull it for a lead generating type business. And there's a lot you can do there too. Are they calling? Are they chatting with your business? Are they filling out a form but abandoning it? Things like that. Are they visiting in store? You can even track like offline conversions. Are they seeing an ad and then converting later? We also help folks track like view through conversions. So there's a lot you can do there. You can also deploy other channels to help collect that first party data, perhaps a targeted email marketing campaign to help collect that first party data and more. So totally understand the feeling of like your first party data options are kind of limited because of the nature of your business model, but there is still ways to do that. So definitely don't give up there. That's a good question. First party data isn't exclusive to just like retail. Oh, this is a great question from Colin. He asked, what are the factors used in determining the runtime of ads and when to modify or refocus them for Google Ads? How long should a campaign run before making changes? So I'm going to give you, I think, an answer you'll like, but also it's not probably 100% the answer you're looking for. So there obviously is no like yes or no answer to honestly anything in PPC. PPC is not very black and white. Like I said, there's multiple different routes to like the same success on Google Ads and Microsoft Ads. So what one practitioner or professional might tell you will be different than what another does. And it doesn't mean that either of those answers are wrong. They're probably both bringing in great results, but there's just preference and there's multiple different ways to do this. And it's also subjective to what your business type is and so on. So the factors, used in determining the runtime of ads and when to modify them. Now, like I mentioned, like I gave that example where there was a campaign running for like a really long time, almost 10 years. So if the campaign is running and like you have it set up, it's foundational, you can let that campaign run. Now, there are times when maybe you're using a PMAX campaign or a more kind of like like a more time sensitive offer or time sensitive campaign, obviously that's going to be down to time constraints, or ad scheduling as well can help you manage that. Um, and also, as far as making changes to campaigns and in accounts, I usually say, this PPC takes time, right? So, like, if you may go into your Google Ads account right now and make a change on your campaign, you're not going to notice a change immediately. So, usually, what I recommend is you want to give it time, because basically anytime you make a change, it's going to go into that learning period where Google Ads' algorithm is testing the change that you made to see how to best serve your ads. So with anything in Google Ads, I say give it a minimum of 2 weeks or 14 days, but ideally 30 days or more. So usually, like within 2 weeks, you're going to see your performance start to stabilize. You might see it ebb and flow a little bit after that change. And then really after a month is when you have like a full month's worth of data to compare to. But it honestly takes time. One of my biggest jokes all the time is that the hardest part of PPC is patience. So good question there. Oh, this is a great question from Kyle, and I know we're right at time, so I'll answer this and then let you all go. But he's asked, what if getting more granular with targeting makes the audience smaller and harder to convert for smaller markets? This is a really good question and something that happens all the time for advertisers. And basically, what it means is, you don't want to restrict yourself. Like, let's say your audience targeting is getting more and more granular. Well, then you're in a super small, limited pool, and so your conversions are overall going to be pretty limited. So I would say within that case, you need to have that balance there where you don't want to restrict yourself, but you don't want to be showing too much. So there is going to be a happy medium there, and there's a lot of tools that can help you gauge like the size of your audience. Even if you were to select an audience in Google Ads right now, it'll give you an estimation of the amount of users in that audience. So be thinking of that. Also be creative with like the ways that you're targeting. So I'm not just talking about just an audience list, because of course that can get pretty restrictive pretty quick, but things like location targeting, things like, even ad scheduling, again, that can limit your audience, but not like restrict it. So that's a good question. Definitely something to be aware of. And I would say it's definitely more of um, a balance there. A lot of questions coming in about specific types of accounts and verticals and getting to the top of a listing, or getting to the top of a search engine results page. That's definitely a difficult balance. So again, I would say that's why that poll is up. And I would also say, um, I would say just working through the kind of the tips that I talked about earlier. Implementing smart bidding, how are mistakes managed and identified with smart bidding? So smart bidding gets better over time, which is why you want to keep your campaigns running on smart bidding, because the more historical data it has, the better it's going to run. Great questions here. I wish I could answer all of them. We're already 2 minutes over, so I want to go ahead and, thank you all so much for joining. I hope you found this helpful. If you want to learn more, like I mentioned, check out WordStream and Local IQ websites. We do these webinars twice a month, so keep your eyes peeled for the next webinar. And thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.